Okay, we're talking about objective reality with some objectivists. I've been talking in comments to people in Qtronman's video, um, which I'll try to put a link, maybe a reply to with this video. So first of all, no, I'm not confused about the terms. Okay, I've been dealing with this stuff a long time. I was just thinking I'm going through stuff here, organizing things, and I found something I wrote like 20 years ago on this subject that's consistent with what I believe now. I have more to add to it now. Certain things I would change if I was writing it now, but it basically is compatible with what I think now. I'm not confused about the terms. When you say that, it seems to me usually you don't understand where the arguments lead. Now I'm pointing out some, ramification, implication of what we're talking about, and you don't see the connection, so you think I'm confused. But let's step back a bit. I have a structural view. Okay, the view is structural. It's how you build something. Okay, we're building an organization, a structure for our knowledge. That's epistemology. Okay, we start from subjective perceptions. Right? Can we agree that we start from objective perceptions? If you can agree with me on that, then a lot of my views follow, because I actually have a system that does, add together, into a complete system that works together. Because that's one thing as relativists I realize there's more than one way to model something. So my first principle is really that I don't need absolute knowledge in my model in order to understand. But you're not satisfied with that. You're saying, oh no, these absolute truths are in nature. So I have to recognize them as absolute truths. Okay? And that's where we have a problem, because even as a relativist, then we're talking about the world we have in common, which means we're talking about a common reference frame. And within the common reference frame, there will be many common truths. Okay? But that's not objective. It's still relative. Okay? Objective is the wrong. Objective implies that your idea has to have a one-to-one correspondence with something in reality, and that there really is only one idea you can form from that object. You say, no, that's not what I believe. Well, listen, this is an argument thousands of years old. Okay, there's circles of philosophy where I can say objectivist. Nobody assuming it has a capital O or has anything to do with Rand, even if they know who Rand is. Okay, just as people that believe in an objective knowledge, which there's a motivation to that, which is you want to prove something that you know is objective. Okay, and that's why it becomes important. So if we can agree that we start from our perceptions, our sense perceptions, and everything that we know, then and by extension, our experiences as evolutionary creatures, because some of our ideas we do get genetically. So, I'm making an analog there that still comes from our previous experiences and is of a type with, memory, with learning from experiences. Only the funny thing about that is that's real experiences. We have a lot of these fantasy experiences in our minds. So the experiences or memories of our genes of what has worked for survival is in one sense more reliable, but only heuristically, right? Because it'll try something more or less at random, not necessarily another debate, but let's just say at random. And if it works, great, it becomes a rule of thumb, and it does. It doesn't know why. So it can also be confused when it looks at all these heuristics and tries to think of why, and come up with things like, well, because God said to think this way. And anyway, so much for that tangent. The thing is, probably many of you cannot agree with me on that and think that we start from metaphysical, and if not magic metaphysical, then just principles, self-evident analytic truths of some sort. Okay, perhaps there are some mathematical statement you like, the principle of non-contradiction maybe, or the law of cause and effect, and so on. And if you think those came just from the ether, from nothing, they just come sui cause out from themselves somehow, rather than from perception, then we're already going to differ. Okay, do I differ with Rand on that? My impression is that I do. And I know I differ with many objectivists on that. For example, David Harriman, whose whole diatribe is about the assault on these self-evident truths. He says that they've been thrown out and that we'll have no rudder now seeking knowledge. Okay. I think that's an insult, an odd insult. When you consider he's making it directly by name to a man like Bohr, who definitely had a way of reasoning about nature and made predictive statements with his theories that turned out to be very highly accurate, which is a confidence builder in knowledge demonstration. And so obviously he had some way to still seek knowledge. Perhaps David Harriman should be wondering, what way is that? Because that's the way we need in face of the facts that we're faced with now. To me, all of these principles come from experience. The law of cause and effect is the name of an idea. It's a model, okay, of what's going on in the real world. How can I say that? Because this is our mind, our physical mind. The ideas are going on in there in chemical processes, natural chemical processes of some sort, okay? And that's going on out in the real world. So I think that it's a model in my brain. That's why I can dream and I still see a horse or a house or something, because I have the model of it, and that's what I'm really experiencing directly. Indirectly, my senses are connected to something that I can't really prove a fundamental nature about, but which I know gives me things that I don't seem to create these impressions, and they're very consistent. But still, I have a model of what's real. And no model is meant to be perfect, okay? They're not even meant to be perfect. They're not perfect. They're not meant to be perfect. They're meant to model. And to be efficient, they ignore things that are not important to the purposes of the model, right? A dollhouse ignores a lot of detail because the purpose is for kids to play. An architectural model shows a lot of detail, but does ignore certain kinds that are not important, or fake certain kinds, doesn't have to be realistic. Okay. The law of cause and effect is, the law of cause and effect is a name, okay, for a concept. Okay. Now, saying that that law is absolute is saying that that concept absolutely applies to the real world, that it is that correct. It adheres in a very one-to-one relationship with something in the real world. Okay? It's absolute. It doesn't need to be changed. It can't change. It is absolute. But the law of cause and effect is just a theory. It's a very good theory, but it is just a theory based on our experiences about the real world. Okay? And when we get to new information, eventually, all theories will yield and break down. And the law of cause and effect, we have now gotten enough information from physics alone, let alone other experiences, to see the law of cause and effect break down. It doesn't mean there won't be something to model. See, the model's what broke down. The phenomena is still going on. I'm sure that it will go on while we figure out what new model we need. Okay? To reform a theory, it has to be able to post-predict, to, predict in the reverse direction and explain things we've already seen. Okay, and it also generally is motivated by and must then predict the new information. When there's new information that no theory, models yet, then these days in science, there's a competition of theories. There's a bunch of people, 5 theories trying to explain it, and then they try to devise ways to test it. Because by testing it, you create an experiment that creates a very careful perception, a repeatable perception, and that's how you expand your knowledge. Knowledge comes from perception. So, that's the first thing we really have to discuss, is these self-evident truths. In various ways, they all fall, and we can go into that in great detail if you like. I may be wrong, but on this subject I'm not confused.